You cannot control everything when you're in the spiritual path. So what I mean when I say that is that, for example, if you're meditating, you cannot control your thoughts. You cannot attempt. I mean, you can attempt, but you cannot even control your own emotions. And that's a very, very, in a sense, unsettling thought to have if this is the first time you're, discovering this concept. However, the thing is, you really don't have much control over yourself, or rather, your identity, your ego, and your bodily functions. Just imagine how much, how much chemical reactions take place inside of you every single day. It's millions and billions, and how many of those reactions do you think you have control over? Very few, actually, very, very few. And that just goes to show how little control you have, even when it comes to things which you think you have control over, like your thoughts. Chances are you do not have that much control. You might have conscious control, but the thing is, the conscious thoughts that you experience only make up like 1% of all the thoughts that you experience. The other remaining 99%, they're all subconscious, right? And you don't have much control over your subconscious. And this is like, in a sense, a very unsettling thought, like I mentioned before, if this is the first time you encountered it. However, what I notice is that when people first begin to come into their spiritual path, right? They come with like the assumption that they'll be able to control their life, they'll be able to be happy, they'll be able to do all of that. And that is true, you know. Once you begin to pray, once you begin to start practice of prayer, meditation, and other spiritual practices, a lot of that negativity around you generally starts to like fade away, right? All of your vices, or at least most of your vices, start to fade away. However, what I notice is that they carry that assumption later into their advanced stages of their spiritual practice. However, that should not be the case, because you must develop and you must change your assumptions over time. That's just how human beings are. And one of the main assumptions that you must, at least it would be beneficial if you change, is that you have control. The assumptions of you having control over yourself. In reality, you do not, right? Because once you truly understand who you are, you realize that a lot of these thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, they've either conditioned into you, right? Or yeah, they were all conditioned into you, by society and by the external world, by basically, in a sense, your own functionality as a human being. They were conditioned. And what happens is when something gets conditioned, it gets stuck. Not forever, but it gets stuck, and your brain basically repeats it on autopilot. That's how habits are formed. Basically, all your thoughts, emotions, 99.9% of them are just habituated. They're just automated patterns, right? So basically, when you think about it like that, it basically frees up yourself, because you realize you are no longer the one who has to worry about that, right? It's not your response, it's not your fault, basically. That frees you up. And then you might be thinking, okay, well, it might free me up, but I still have to change. I still have to do this and that. And you're right, you absolutely have to do that. You might have some negative habits that are destroying your health, right? However, if you first wish to change it, you first must realize that there needs to be, in a sense, some space between you, who you really are, okay? Not your ego identity, not your identity, but whom you really are at your core, your being, and whatever that is, whatever that negative problem that you are experiencing is, there needs to be some kind of psychological space. And the way you do that is going to your being, right? Once you go to your being and you see that space, then after that, it allows your, in a sense, brain to process everything that has happened. It allows your subconscious to process. So what so how you really change all of these, habits and stuff, you can try to consciously change it with willpower and effort. That's a very valid strategy, but a more effective strategy, in my opinion, is allowing the back of your brain enough time to process it. And the way you do that is by accepting those negative traits about yourself. Oops, sorry. That's basically you do it. And when I say accepting it, I don't mean just being passive about it. No, I'm just saying this is happening. It feels bad, and I'm just gonna go with it. You know, not in the sense I'm gonna go with it, no, and do nothing about it. Not like that. I'm gonna go with it, and I'm gonna realize it's going to be there. It's just the way it is. However, even though it's just the way it is, it can change, right? You have to fully, in a sense, accept it, not just a small part of it. No, no. You have to feel that acceptance too. And once that happens, your brain automatically gets a memo and it allows to process it. And once it starts to process, then only the fun begins. So yeah, this was a small video. Hopefully it reminded you to be easy on yourself. Thank you.